Hi students, welcome to our final lecture. We made it through the semester. We'll be finishing up our discussion of anatomy by covering the urinary and reproductive systems, known collectively as the urogenital system. So both of these systems are closely associated in mammals, and they actually share some structures, despite performing two very different functions. So in the urinary system, the kidneys function along with the bladder to produce and store urine. The ureters and the urethra are tubes in the system that act as conduits between these two organs. The entire purpose of the urinary system is to remove waste, liquid waste, from the animals. So in mammals, the reproductive system is different. Obviously, it functions to produce gametes and eventually offspring. So male and female animals differ in the morphological structures of the reproductive system, but essentially they're doing the same function. It's just that the form of the gamete created by each system is different. Either it's a sperm cell or it's an egg cell. All right, so focusing first on the urinary system. The main organ of the urinary system is the kidney. It functions to filter out waste substances from the blood to produce urine. The body also uses urine to help regulate the salt and the water balance in the body. So it either rids itself of excess water or rids itself of excess salt as necessary. So the kidney is a very spongy, bean-shaped organ. In humans, it's located along our back, right above our pelvis. And it's actually filled with a complex network of convoluted tubes. So the spongy portion of the kidney is subdivided into two regions known as the renal cortex and the renal medulla. The renal cortex contains the functional units of the kidney. These are known as nephrons. These nephrons connect to a complex system of tubes and a collecting duct, which is located in the renal medulla. So at the center of the organ is the renal pelvis, which acts as a funnel to collect all the urine from the kidney and then transport it to the ureter. Again, you'll probably be detecting a pattern here, but capillary beds in the circulatory system will again play an important role in the urinary system and the production of urine, especially in the nephrons. So the nephron, the nephrons are the functional unit of the kidney. And these kidneys contain specialized capillary beds which wrap around the kidney's tubules, these tubes that run through the spongy portion of the kidney. So blood flows into the kidney from the renal artery into something that's known as the glomerulus. This structure filters blood into the tubule, which is then wrapped with capillary beds. So it's a little bit counterintuitive because the blood is actually exiting the circulatory system into this renal tubule, and then it's going to flow back into the circulatory system. So we have diffusion. It allows the water and these salts to pass across this plasma membrane from the tubule back into the blood vessels. So waste will be removed, and the body will reabsorb salt and water as needed, again, based on concentration. So this is actually why when you're dehydrated, your urine is actually a darker color, because your body has been trying to reabsorb this water. So the better hydrated you are, the less water is needed to be reabsorbed at this step of filtration, and therefore more water exits the body along with urine, and therefore it's a lighter color. I used to work for a urologist, and her favorite saying was that your urine should actually be the color of a nice glass of Chardonnay. So take that with you and do with it what you will. But I thought it was pretty good advice. So this is not part of your assignment, but I think it's pretty interesting to know about, and it's actually one of the cooler inventions of modern medicine. So this is dialysis as a treatment for kidney failure. So scientists actually in the last century were able to develop a method of removing blood from the body of a person that is in kidney failure, meaning the kidneys have shut down and they can no longer remove waste from the blood. And this is actually a very rapidly fatal condition if you're in total kidney failure, because the waste substances just build up in your blood and you just no longer can sustain life. So anyway, dialysis basically removes blood from the body and sends it through a specialized filter, which is known as a dialyzer. This dialyzer allows the reabsorption of water and salts to be infused back into the body through the vein. And then people who develop kidney failure for any number of reasons can be cured from kidney failure by receiving a kidney transplant, but it's extremely difficult to find an organ donor, and it can be a very long and difficult journey. And since kidney failure is so rapidly fatal, the invention of dialysis to help prolong these patients' lives while they wait for an organ to become available, this is a pretty amazing thing that we just have the ability to have an external organ working for us. And there's also actually a similar process known as ECMO, which is a similar process being used to help sustain COVID patients, where they actually remove the blood from the patient to reoxygenate the patient when the lungs have failed during this infection. So this is a much newer process, but it is also just basically very similar to this schematic here, where you have the filter filling in for the organ. And these things are literal lifesavers. So it's good to know exactly what's going on when you hear about someone who's on dialysis, or you may read about something in the news about patients getting something called ECMO. All right, moving on. After this urine is created in the kidneys, it's collected in the renal pelvis. That's that funnel-like structure inside the actual kidney, and that funnels it into the ureter. So these ureter, there's a right and a left ureter, because we have a right and a left kidney, and it funnels urine down into the bladder. So the bladder is basically a muscular storage pouch. It holds urine, and it can hold this urine until it's eliminated through the urethra. There's actually, muscular control of the urethra, so urination can be eliminated under conscious control. All right, so moving on to the reproductive system. We'll go through the male reproductive system first. The main organs of the male reproductive system include the testes. This is where the gametes are actually produced through the process of spermatogenesis. So if you remember from our earlier classes, gametes are specialized cells that are created through the process of meiosis. And they're also haploid, meaning that they contain half the number of chromosomes as our diploid somatic cells. So when a sperm, which has one half of the number of chromosomes required, meets an egg, which has the other half of the chromosomes that are required, you have a complete diploid organism. So sperm cells are produced in the testes, and as they develop, they move into a structure known as the epididymis. The cells are stored there until ejaculation occurs, and at this point, the sperm then travel through the vas deferens, and as they travel through the vas deferens, the seminal vesicles, prostate, and the bulbourethral gland secrete fluids which actually nourish and protect the sperm cells before they pass into the urethra and begin to travel in search of an egg. So that actually is what distinguishes sperm from semen. So sperm are just the sperm cells, and then it becomes semen as it passes through these glands and gets all of this additional fluid added to it. So during embryonic development, the testes are actually internal to the body. So they first start to develop in the abdominal cavity of a fetus, and they will gradually migrate during development down into the scrotal sacs. So it travels through something known as the inguinal canal, and then will drop down into the scrotal sac. So when we usually observe our specimens in the lab, we generally can see descended or partially descended testes. We usually have a decent mix. So it's actually interesting to see that process as it occurs. Occasionally, during development, this can go wrong, and so you might have heard of something known as an undescended testicle, which is something that can be treated with surgery, usually early in life. But this happens. It happens. All right, so as the male reproductive system functions to produce sperm cells, the female reproductive system produces these gamete cells known as eggs through the process of oogenesis. So these haploid gametes are produced in the ovaries. They develop and they mature in the ovary until they are released and travel into the fallopian tubes. So if there is sperm present in the fallopian tube, the egg will become fertilized by that sperm. The fertilized egg then continues to travel through the fallopian tube until it reaches the uterus, and then it can implant into the uterine lining. So this lining is built up each egg cycle in the uterus to provide nutrients to help the potential developing embryo. So the egg embedding into the lining of the uterus is actually what triggers development of the placenta. If we bring it back to our first day of going over pig anatomy, we saw the umbilical cord, which is what connects the fetus to the placenta. So, as the egg burrows in to the lining of the uterus, this placenta begins to develop. All these blood vessels will start to develop so that the fetus is actually connected to the mother's blood supply through this. So this is one of the very first things that happens. If the egg is not fertilized by a sperm, it will then exit the uterus through the cervix, along with the lining of the uterus, which is shed during menstruation, out the vagina. All right, so here are some pictures of the male and female reproductive systems, or the urogenital systems. And it's called the urogenital system because in humans, we have, the female reproductive system is separated from the urinary system in that the urethra and the vagina are two distinct openings into and out of the body. In the pig, the plumbing, so to speak, is a little bit different. Pigs have a very prominent section of the uterus, which is known as the uterine horn. You can actually see it. It looks a little bit curly. It's labeled here the horn of the uterus. So in humans, this is just simply where the fallopian tube meets the uterus, and it's sort of just a it's not a big distinct structure. But in pigs, it's longer and convoluted, and this is actually the location of the implantation of embryos, rather than in the uterus as in humans. And if you look at the structure of this uterus and you think about the brood size of humans versus pigs, where pigs, they can have something, they can have like 6 to 12 piglets at a time, I think, versus humans, we only really have 1 or 2 babies at a time. It's extremely rare to have multiples, 3 or more babies at a time. And it kind of seems pretty straightforward when you look at this structure and think about the room available to the pig versus the room available to a human. So the other difference in the pig is that the vagina and the urethra merge internally so that there's actually one opening to the external environment, and this is known as the urogenital sinus. And then in the male reproductive system, you can actually see, it's actually very clear to see how the reproductive and urinary system are closely linked in the males, as the urethra is the single opening, is the single exit from the body through which urine and also semen travel. In the male reproductive system, you can see that there's the renal vein and the renal artery, so that, the blood supply that goes into the kidney where it's filtered and then returns to the renal vein into the vena cava, where it returns to the heart and is then pumped through the system. All right. So that covers everything for this semester. Basically, please just complete the final chapters of your lab manual and submit it for the final lab manual check. I will open up an assignment thing, or you can just email it to me. The final exam will also be Wednesday, November 25th. The exam will have the same format as the midterm, where you have 4 questions and you choose to respond to 2. It will be accessible starting at 9 a.m. And then please have all outstanding late assignments submitted to me by December 1st. I really don't care if they're late. Just please get them into me so that when I go to give you your grade, I can give you credit for these assignments. So just December 1st by midnight, So technically, I think 12 a.m. December 2nd. Anyway, thank you for a great semester. I know it has not been the easiest semester, and it's probably not anything like any of us imagined. But I've been very impressed with you all keeping up with this self-paced work. It's not easy to do this all on your own through a computer. So bravo. Thank you for all your efforts. And I hope that we will see each other on campus sometime soon. Have a wonderful holiday break, and please stay safe and healthy. Bye.